Joining me today is MAUREEN. She is one of our reporters on staff, reporter extraordinaire here at Forbes. So now one of the interesting things about Atlanta, Georgia, we've seen pension reforms throughout the country. We've been hearing about it in the news. We've been seeing it across states. I think of Wisconsin and all the controversy there earlier this year. Atlanta, Georgia has passed their own sweeping reforms, actually some of the largest reforms we've seen in a U.S. metro. Let's talk about that.
Sure. It was pretty amazing. It was a huge sweeping reform, as you said. And it was controversial, of course, among the city employees, but it was somewhat less controversial than you would think. For example, the city workers actually wound up having to pay a 60% increase in what they put into their pension contribution. For example, they were putting 8% into their pensions before. Now, after all these compromises, after pension reform, they're putting 13% in. So that's a big jump. But what the takeaway is that the city workers get to keep their benefits.
The question is, doing it involves very serious political challenge, very serious political consequences that will put my leadership of the city at risk. But I think now is the time to really do the hard things. Now, I've been saying that since I got in office, and I'm trying to live it.
Why the need for this? I mean, what was this budget really looking like in Atlanta?
It was a huge part of the budget. I think that's what he says. He says, you know, he made it not an ideological issue. He made it a math problem that they had to solve. He wanted everyone to agree what the math problem was. Let's look at how this affected our budget. That's what he said. So $1.5 billion in unfunded liabilities. It was eating up about 20% of the city's budget. So that was the huge number that they were working with, 20% that couldn't be allocated to other things.
And so now, as you've said to me before, that Mayor Reed, this was one of his major projects coming into office in the past 18 months. So what's next for the mayor? What do you think is next for Atlanta?
So in terms of the pension, for example, he solved some big problems, but he's going to continue to tinker with smaller but significant issues. For example, it's a $2 billion pension system. He says there are 40 different outside firms managing the pension.
In the private sector, 40 active managers for that amount of capital is unheard of. We also had a recent study that showed that if our funds had simply been an index fund that were not actively managed, the yield would have been more than $60 million higher, and we cannot grow government. So you have to make all of the modifications I'm talking about right now, continue to keep your workforce trim and competent and able, and not grow it back to where we were. At our height, we had 9,500 employees. So we're now down to 7,500 employees. So we're 2,000 employees down. The mistake in the future would be to return to the old days.
So he's going to continue to tinker with the budget. One thing now, because it's been a pretty good run at fixing this problem, he's getting a lot of attention on the national stage. So one question I, of course, had to ask him was if he's looking to run for higher office. And he said he wants to be a two-term mayor, and then he definitely does not want to seek higher office and wants to return to being an attorney to the private sphere. So we'll see if that happens, but that's what he says right now.